started, so you want to call us in, please?
Sure.
Gil?
Present, let's see, Anderson's absent, so we have Tyler.
Here.
Kim. Here. John.
Here.
And Deb. Here.
And entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Stands approved. And John Pop is here for public forum.
Great,
Update
thank
us
you.
on the trail project.
Yeah, as everybody's aware, the trail project is continuing, and we've committed as a group to fund $150,000 of that. And I just wanted to give an update on that. The last number I have is we've taken in $42,213. And with the matching funds, that obviously doubles. So we got a little over $32,000 to go, because the matching funds would also contribute towards that also. So it's in place, the signs are all in, and I know it's being used.
Yeah.
So even when it's dark and even when it's cold, there's people out there.
Yeah.
So it's, I think it's been a great improvement. So I can report that all of the city council members have contributed, and all of the city employees have contributed. So I would hope that all of the school board members would be part of that, and maybe we can at least count on the administration to be part of that. So if there's, and there is a tax deductible method, so if you're looking for some of those here at the end of the year, that would be great. I know the number is a little higher than that because there's some money that's been committed that hasn't come in yet. So full speed ahead, we got another approximately 5-6 months to get to the goal, and I really hope to think that we'd be past that number because there's some other trails that we'd like to improve or add on to that would all be part of it. So wanted that update. Hopefully the sidewalk that's on your property can be widened and repaired to match that, at least maybe to the driveway, which would be a nice addition. I know there's some, that Steve tried to get some things done in the ditch to try and clean that up, and the weather kind of got him, so hopefully we can get that kind of cleaned up too. And the only other, so if there's any questions or comments, that's kind of where we're at, and I'm going back through the list of targets that we had to kind of at least revisit those and see if we can pull some of them through here at the end of the year.
John, there was a couple of grants that I remember the city was looking at, and that was a council meeting Lindsay and I were at 6 months ago or something. Any updates, or did those come and go, or still out for?
There was one through one of the banks that looked promising that we didn't get it.
Okay.
So at this point, I don't have anything on the radar screen.
Okay.
In that regard.
Okay. Yeah. And then the list that you referred to, I know we'd come up with a list of businesses. We need to go back and kind of review that list. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think there's several key people that we want to be sure and at least touch, if I can say it that way. And there's several businesses I think would be good that we think that would want to be part of this.
Yep.
So that's kind of in the works there.
Well, thanks for the update, John.
Yeah, if nobody has any other questions. One other thing that we did notice when we were kind of working on that ditch a little bit to at least get the brush cut down is the retaining pond has got some overgrowth over the concrete and some scrub trees starting in there. So if that can get put on somebody's hit list in the spring to kind of clean that up, because that services that whole acreage all the way up to Matthews. So if we need to maintain that, if you guys could. So with that, anything else for the city? Because we got a council meeting tonight, I'll be glad to bring it up.
We're just working on getting the talking points out for our bond issue. So once we have those, John, we'll get those communicated to the city council, and we're hopeful. We're shooting for an April referendum on that.
April's the target date?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
That'd probably be good to just review the list at some point when we're ready, just so there's no new buildings per se, but there's additions to several. So.
Great.
Well, thanks for stopping by.
You bet. Thanks for a few minutes.
And so we're finishing up public forum. Do you guys have anything you wanted to add to public forum?
Can we ask questions in the public forum?
Sure.
On the bond issue, what's the process? I mean, you guys approve the project and then you start putting that information out to the community, or?
We'll be talking about that, I think, in the,
Okay.
in the meeting, that we'll be able to, it's one of our agenda items that I think we'll have quite a little discussion on. So if we don't cover anything on there, just let me know. Okay. Let's see, 2017-18 district priorities.
Anything in there that needs to be addressed? I know one of the things that we've talked about in our office that I think that two important things that will be addressed if you slide down from the finance or the business end of it would be trying to get information out to the public about the 1 cent extension of the penny. Is I think until 2029 right now, and how critical that can be for not only this district but all districts involved in that. The other thing that we talked about also trying to get, and again when we bring the legislators in early on, would be to go ahead and try to get information out to our patrons about how important it is for some people call it the old allowable growth, some people call it the SSA, the state supplemental aid. But you know, we've talked about this before. We've said that it's going to be a challenge as far as where that's at. But if we don't put any information out to our people to at least contact our legislators, then we can't say anything about it. So those would be two things that I think that you will see happening as far as information coming out from at least the district office, or what we've talked about in that portion. And if you have some thoughts or ideas, I'm really open to those. I don't think that, I think that we're all in the same situation where we want to have a higher SSA, and we want to see what's going to happen with that penny. And there's things. We'll talk a little bit. We talked to Beth Grove about some things. There's going to be maybe some things that the penny might be extended, but they may be putting some restrictions on it from what we currently have. So I don't know. I didn't mean to take up information there. That has not been put in there because we have not put that out. But that's what will be coming out from the financial end of it. Did any of you, as administrators, want to mention anything that I had her skip by? No?
Any questions for Lindsay on the strategic goal? Administrator reports.
I don't believe that there are any this month.
All right. Announcements and celebration.
You got any things that you want to bring to the table?
Our ESL department received a $5,000 grant from Heartland for materials, and so we just put a purchase order in for about 3/4 of that amount, and then we'll be spending the rest of that, which is good. We bought supplemental materials to go with materials that we bought last year. So it's really supplemental reading materials for our ESL students.
Cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Our second graders are in the middle of their project-based learning unit. Really surrounding volunteerism is really kind of what they're really working on. It's a project that they've done, so some of you have had kiddos probably in second grade that have done a similar project. but with some of the PBL approach, they've added different elements to it. One piece they did this year is have different speakers who donate their time, talents, and treasures. And so Kim and Brian were kind enough to come and speak about the board, and Carl Schlick came being the voice of Iowa State Cyclones, and that was awesome. But one of the celebrations is that part of that they write a contract with their parents for things that they will do to earn money, and then that money is then donated for for children who are in foster care for Christmas gifts. And they raised upwards of between $1,000 and $1,500. So
Wow.
she did a great job.
Good idea. Anyone else want to jump in there? I mean,
The high school band did very well at the Skiba Honor Band Festival. We had 12 individuals qualified, which was the most that Gilbert has ever had. They had 11 last year, and they had 12 this year. The jazz band placed third out of 12 bands, which is the best finish that they've ever had in school history, which qualifies them for a possible invitation to the state championships. So that's pretty exciting.
oh, okay, that's great. Did I see something about that the band is going to be the pep band for an Iowa State game?
Yes, they were invited.
Can you tell me about that?
Actually, it's next week, actually. They're going to be performing. They were invited to perform at the Iowa State game with the pep band at Iowa State. So
Nice.
I think
pretty
it's
exciting.
Thursday at 1, right?
Yes.
Something like that? Or
This Thursday, isn't it?
it's the 21st.
I thought it
Is
was,
it?
21st.
I thought it was next week, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
There was a day where it was like, it was earlier, and then we had to reschedule because it just wasn't good with the school schedule, but, yeah. That's pretty awesome to get that honors.
Anyone else have anything? You want to tell them about the technology portion of it?
Sure. So I am really excited, and this is, so I wrote a E-rate grant for Category 2 funding to replace all of our live hardware for our internet, which includes all of our switches and wireless access points. We were granted that grant for a 50-50 match. And so the total grant was $202,098. So we received $101,049. $100,000, this is too many numbers. $100,149.
Nice job.
That's great.
So what this includes is we're going to basically go into every classroom and replace 156 wireless access points in the ceilings, 27 switches, over 500 cables. It's over 220 man hours for this project. And so what I would like to do, and I've talked to the administrators, is to do this during spring break. We have, like the Friday off, and I really like them to get it done early in the week, so then we can get out any kinks or anything before staff decide to start coming back and getting ready. So with this, whenever, I don't think I need your okay, but just kind of a thumbs up or whatever, we write a PO whenever, tomorrow or the next day or whatever, and Gail for 50% of this, so for $100,000. And so we submit that to Communication Innovators, and they take care of the other half with E-rate. So really, that only $100,000 of that ever touches our books. I currently have $127,000 left in my technology budget for this fiscal year. So how we've been doing this is we've been rotating between middle school Chromebooks, high school Chromebooks, and district priorities. So this year happens to land on a district priorities list.
Nice.
So we have this money now available. So are there any questions about this? I think this is great. I think the main network was built when the middle school was built, so it's quite aged. And this is going to give us quite a bit more capacity. And one of the key pillars of this whole thing was to give more access and speed in our large areas, like in our auditorium, our gyms, our commons, where when we have 500 people or whatever, that it'll handle those better. So.
Who is the source of the grant again, Jason?
It's E-rate. It's USAC actually, which is it's a federal.
You might see on your
Yeah.
telephone bills that there's
So you pay
like
for
a
it.
dollar that gets contributed to this
So it came back.
pocket. And actually, it's pretty good because it's based on free and reduced.
Yeah.
Wow.
And ours is low.
We've
so-
never had even a chance at this before.
Yeah,
So.
Wow.
so that's great.
So.
Very cool.
And that'll come against the line item in Pepple then, technology.
Yep.
Perfect.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Terrific.
Let's just stop now.
Okay, any comments on the annual facility closing?
No, I think that what we tried to do was we tried to talk to Mr. Pizzetti from the athletic standpoint, talk to Steve Volstead from the maintenance standpoint, and we always have a time period where we try to go ahead and close the building down, where we just don't have anyone in there and they can maybe do some things. It's a time frame there, but that seems to work out for all parties involved. So it'll be December 22nd through the 26th. Will be the dates that the building will be closed.
Any questions on that? Okay, board reports. We need to discuss the ISB District 5 representative. Do you have a recommendation for that, Lindsay?
Oh, I don't know either one of these, to be honest with you. She has it up on the screen here. Maybe you guys know them from your contacts. I don't know either one, to be honest with you.
Well, Mary's been around for several years.
Yeah,
And
and-
represented us in some meetings, but
And
she's the incumbent.
their school would be more like Gilbert compared
Right.
to the Des Moines Public Schools, so that's what I was thinking as well.
I agree. Would you like me to select, include Mary Ann on that then?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you need a motion for that?
That's up to you. If you want to just appoint her, I can do that. I can just submit her name.
Okay, that
So
sounds
report
good.
basis. Okay. I will do that. That's selection.
And then item B there is if board members want to talk about the convention and things they learned from the convention, or we can table it till next week too if you want a little more time to talk about it.
It's just high level, right?
Yep.
I wasn't supposed to come up with a PowerPoint, I don't think.
Where is your
Brian
PowerPoint?
told me not to.
Oh,
That's what he said, he said
that's
if
what
you
we
want.
always do.
Yeah. Well, I will just give a brief overview. So I actually attended both days because the first day was kind of I went to orientation and then Finance 101. So that was kind of my onboarding day that I attended. And it was really cool because they set you at your assigned seats. And so you sit at a table with a mix of like a superintendent, a couple of representatives from, or superintendent, or I'm sorry, school board members from various districts, and you kind of assign that. So, and you share a lot of information. I really wasn't prepared for that, but it was really very good. Day two, I kind of tried to make a theme of it for the first time because I think it is like it's definitely that drinking water from the hose. I didn't want to get too many different things going on. So I spent a lot of time, I think I went to 4 sessions, and they were around board effectiveness and working with superintendents, creating good, strong partnerships, things like that. And I won't go into too much detail. I'm gonna work with Brian a little bit, I think. I know I mentioned kind of one of the overarching themes, I would say, is the importance of a vision for a board, a vision statement. For a board, we have one for our district, every child, every day, which is perfect, great. But this is more like what they equated, it's like a North Star for the school board. So as we make decisions, what's our vision statement? What's that sticks out and sticks with us? What do we use as our endpoint or our goal when we do our long-range planning, etc. So they had a lot of really good ideas about it, and I think some good suggestions of ways they went about doing it. So I kind of mentioned to Brian that maybe we can get together and talk and throw some ideas around of ways that maybe we can look at that. I know I'm new, so I don't exactly know to what extent we've done it before. Lindsay kind of helped a little bit and shared an older vision that the board created when John Kinley was superintendent, and it was a little outdated, but in my opinion, it was a little outdated, but hoping maybe we can refresh it and it would help. It's the main goal of it is so that as a board, it helps us to focus our eyes and our efforts at the right level, not get too much into the details, but to keep us on the kind of the end goal of what we should be focusing on versus what is maybe more clearly administrative or things like that. So overall, I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm kind of excited. It kind of was a good way to meet people and kind of get kind of charged up. So thank you for letting me go both days, by the way. Whoever wrote the check, Gail, thank you. That was good. This was my PowerPoint. Sorry.
Very good. And then it's in color.
That's in color, yeah. That's all.
So I agree, it's a great conference, but I take most from it is that you get an opportunity to talk in the hallways and even within the sessions with other school board members that some districts have some of the same issues, some districts don't, but you can learn from all of them. A couple of the sessions I sat in dealt with facilities, one Urbandale, one Centerville of all places, which was interesting, but both have a 2-meeting approach to their month, and we did that when we went through construction a couple of years ago, such that one is business focused and then one can be more of a work session, more of let's make sure we're in touch with what's going on within the school, and it allows the administrative team or teachers or even students to have that interaction. But they really encourage that, so that, you know, like tonight will be a lot of business, and that's what it was last month on November, and it's hard to go back and forth. But it also then, while it commits to a second night, it streamlines the meetings. And that was another thing that I always ask when I'm down there is, how long are your school board meetings? And the world record I heard from West Dubuque was, ours are about 45 minutes. And I thought, that's good. And here's one of the things that they said was, well, we have very, very active committees. And those committees drive a lot of the groundwork. And what comes to the board is simply the results, a brief discussion, and you move on. So committees like finance, facilities, SIAC, legislative, et cetera, et cetera. So I just encourage the board to continue to look at both as we move into more facility things in the next 6 months. If that starts bogging down our meetings, that we consider going to two a month to streamline, one for business and one for a work session. And I'd also encourage us to continue to look at substantial committees to, again, help streamline the board meeting. The only other thing I had, well, 2 other things. What does a successful graduate look like? And there was a couple of different schools that start putting together metrics. So to your point about what does the board drive for? Well, to me, it would be, well, what's a successful graduate of Gilbert? Yeah. And that's what we should be driving towards.
Maybe it was the same school that a representative of the same school, because their vision statement from their board was actually, this is what a graduate kind of looks like. So it keeps you at the right level and out of the weeds of how to do it. But it might have been the same school district.
And then probably most are aware, I wasn't fully aware of the Promise of Iowa campaign, which some of us got buttons down there, but it's basically a campaign, I'm assuming Department of Ed driven, that's really trying to encourage communities to realize the importance of the public education. And you know, some communities it's a little tougher than others. I feel like ours is on board, but we should be mindful that there's other school districts that maybe not so much. And they've got 5 pillars: preparing our kids for future success, strengthening communities, cultivating economic growth, promoting equity, and being both accountable and transparent to the community. So that's the Promise of Iowa campaign for public education. So to your point earlier, Lindsay, about, well, what's the funding look like? Well, Promise of Iowa would be a good campaign to jump on board to support that.
It's interesting, Tyler brought up, and I don't know if you look back at the back when he brought up about what a graduate would look like, but was it last week that last Thursday we were working with a group that's called Ed Leader 21. And that's exactly what we're looking at as far as what the framework, and just not the people here, it's all of us, what that graduate from Gilbert would look like. And we're a part of their group, consortium, system, whatever. And there's some pretty powerful names within the state. There's some high flyers that are in there, and we hope to go ahead and be able to be looking at that in more depth. So that's very interesting that you brought that up, Tyler.
You see that being a major piece of kind of what we'll be looking at in the spring then? Will that be a key piece of kind of the 3 to 5 year priorities will tie very much into that?
Absolutely.
They have. I mean, I think that what we're finding is that they really have a lot of the tools that can help us through that process.
Wonderful. Now, we had any luck at pinning anybody down that would be leading that process for us yet?
They have some people, as a matter of fact, that's what we had. We had a conference call last Thursday with them, and they have some people within their system that can help us. The thing that they make sure that we know is the heavy lifting is going to be within our district. I mean, because it's going to be our district that will determine those type of things. But I really do feel that there's some things to be gained from that, and that yes, they do have some support there.
Good. I went down there, and the leadership part was the focus. I was kind of like Deb of okay, this is kind of a theme that I was kind of going with, and so they had the Cardinal School District present, and so I don't know, the room was filled with 200-300 people. I mean, it was a really full room, and when we first sat down, they said, I want everybody to go to the outside of the walls, and for the next 30 seconds, I want you to look at everybody you see as the person in the grocery store you most hope to avoid. And then you did that for 30 seconds, and then he said, the next 30 seconds, every person you see is your long-lost friend from high school, is the relative that your cousin you grew up with, who you're closest with, and you have things in common you have with no one else. And so his whole point was just to show you just how important climate and culture is to the room, because once everybody had permission to be friendly, the mood in the room just changed. It was really quite a deal to see. And so he talked about, he put their financials up, and I took a picture of them on my cell phone. So their enrollment out was costing them $300,000 to the negative for their tuition dollars in from the state. After completing this, their enrollment in was adding $1.7 million. It was a $2 million flip for the Cardinal School District after they started working on climate and culture. And so just kind of reiterated what we already know, that when we work on climate and culture, it's well worth our time financially and for lots of reasons. So that was good. And then the other session I sat in on was it was the Walgreens. He was the kind of the diversity person for Walgreens, and his big pitch was he went down the 10 list of leadership items, and he spoke of a distribution center that Walgreens has that's 75% is mentally challenged people that work in that distribution center that they put together. So he was a powerful speaker and really kind of reiterated those same kind of points. So once again, that they just have outstanding speakers there, and it was really well worth my time. On Wednesday morning, I went to the legislative session, and there really wasn't a lot of new things coming out of there that I think would warrant much discussion. And then Friday morning, Lindsay and I had a good meeting, and I'll let you talk about that, Lindsay. But it very good convention.
You bet. I would echo the same things that the board members have. It's an opportunity to go to the sessions, but it's also an opportunity to get together with people and share some of their ideas, listen to their ideas, and what's working well and maybe what isn't working quite as well. I had an opportunity to attend a session that's called New Laws, Added Flexibility in Categorical Funding and Home Rule. So, you've heard him talk about home rule, and you've heard him talk about Dillon's rule. And there's some flexibility that we'll start to see as far as categorical funding with this. The question, it was really interesting. This room was packed because this is something that people are wanting to get a better idea on. And they had 3 people from the DE that were up there. 1 was legal and 2 were regular people from the DE. And I'll tell you what, there's still a lot of questions out there about how this will all take place. I think that we were talking about everything from what will happen with categorical funding. Maybe it's the use of homeschool assistance programs. Maybe it's the use of at-risk. Maybe it's the use of, you name it. Anything that's categorical, there's going to be some changes in there. And I think that I think that this is something that we want to keep our ear close to the ground on, because I think that we're going to see some changes out there. The only thing is, I'm not sure that as this was passed, that the legislation thought about the overall ripple effects of this. So I thought that was very informative. Again, all kinds of questions of what does this mean, what does this mean, and there's information from their PowerPoint that I think is very, very helpful. Had an opportunity to go and listen to, this is Glenwood. Just wanted to see, it says the facts of education using data to improve our school. And I got a whole thing, just a whole number of things that they use. They call them quarterly deck reporting schedule. And some of the things that they look at, and they look at them periodically. They don't look at them every month, but outcome assessments, Iowa assessments, FAST benchmarks, annual CSIP goals, Iowa report card, ACT and college readiness. Those are just some things under achievement. Under financial, they look at their treasurer's report, the CAR, the financial balances, the mid-year standing, the end of the year projections. They just have a number of different things under each of the following areas that they will go ahead and they have marked, like for instance on the financial part in October, the things that I mentioned there, that's one of the keys that they're looking at, and those are reports that are going to the board. Activity surveys, they have summer activity analysis that they have. This includes any of the sports, any of the clubs that are there, fall activity in November, and then winter that would be in March, and spring would be in June. But strategic initiatives, they look at competency-based education, they look at one-to-one web technology. I'm not saying that you would take everything that they had here, but it was very informative as far as just some things to look at, and maybe what we would do is we would go ahead and put some of these reports on a schedule. And then another one that I had an opportunity to attend, and it was listening to what IASB has. It was Patty Schroeder and Sean Schneider, the 2 finance people, the support directors from IASB, and they talked about what they can offer for financial support and things. And I looked at what we were able to get from ISFAS, and it didn't seem like the 2 really compared. It seems like we were getting a lot more from ISFAS than what we. And I'm not saying anything bad about IASB, but I just think that when we're looking at, if we want to look at what we're going to be doing the next 5 years, what are we looking at for adding, people onto our staff? The one from ISFAS is a lot better. John and I did have an opportunity to go. I think this is like the 2nd year or so that we've gone. I think I've gone to Tyler before too. And what it is it's a school board presidents and superintendents. And we go down, and this is the last day, it's a Friday of the session, once the other sessions are over. And we get an opportunity to, again, talk to some of the different schools that are there. We do some role playing. John had a big part in some of the role playing there.
We feel a lot better about ourselves after you hear some of these stories.
We do. They set up so that you can go around to different topic areas and kind of listen in or add in or whatever. And I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Well, there's some that when we talk about gaining on enrollment, that's something that a lot of people aren't doing. When we talk about how we're doing academically, again, great kudos to all the people involved in that. But it was definitely informative. The table that we sat at, one of the board presidents there was talking about their meetings that they would have in their auditorium, wasn't it? And they would have, you know, it full because of controversial things that were happening. So, knock on wood, we're not having that happen. But you know, there's things that I think that we were able to get out of that, just some real common sense type of things, but some things that we were able to also look at as far as working together. Thank you, Lindsay.
John, has Gilbert ever been on the program, like presenting what we do?
Boy, not since I've been down there. Do you remember that?
No.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
They tend to
I
be
know it's
very,
more work for you guys, but
Yeah.
I think we're doing some good things that we should share.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm assuming it's by invite, but it's also very topical, right? So,
We'll, maybe after we get through our Ed 21 stuff and plan through all that stuff, maybe we'll have a good topic we can throw past them. Let's see, appoint City of Ames Conference Board Member.
She has it up there. I just got this the other day. Do you guys remember, did we do this last year? Or I can't remember. I know sometimes we have, maybe sometimes we haven't. I think it's like one meeting. I think that if you're the lucky winner of this prize, you have to be, I thought it said someplace that you
have to live in the city of
have to
Ames.
live in the city of Ames, yes.
well, I'm out. So,
I'm out.
I'll go.
Okay.
Do I have to know, what do I have to know?
Can you just look there and
January
it can kind of tell you a
23rd.
little bit.
Yeah.
You want to be the rep for the district?
do it.
I
She's
feel like
the
I
only
should.
one that lives actually within the city.
Okay.
Oh, okay, there we go. So
I
there.
didn't-
But you would have been my choice anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
You have to know your address, Deb.
I got it.
Okay.
I've got that written down. So that's not a problem.
That will be the person for that.
Do we need a?
Better write that down somewhere.
No, I'll just, you can just approve her. She's the only one, so.
Old business, second reading, possible waive the third reading for our it's like records and amended board policy purchase bidding. And we're thinking about a $50,000 limit is the question.
Yeah, and I included, I did some
Yeah, thanks
survey.
for
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
that.
that's
That
very
helps.
Gives you an idea
Yep.
of where it is, but
That makes sense to me.
I'd entertain a motion
So
for
moved.
50. I guess I can't entertain it, but I can ask for a motion for 50.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Stands at 50.
Because we couldn't fast for these.
And
Do you have
then,
a question? No, I just never
do
remember saying anything.
did that include waiving the third reading as well, that motion?
Yes,
We
it
do
did.
that?
sure.
All right, very good. New business, appointing board negotiation team. So I have graciously volunteered for that role and need someone to assist me in that. So who would like to throw their hat in the ring for that?
Am I supposed to
I'd
say?
be happy to help. I think Deb and Brian are doing a lot right now.
All right.
Unless Deb really wants.
Dying for
It's a
it?
good experience.
Yeah.
Polite pass.
Yeah,
Well, only because I do think I have to be careful
no,
about
I
getting too
think
thin.
that's good.
I think
Tim and
so.
I will be able to
That's
take
good.
that.
Thanks for doing that.
And I know we will need to get together with our legal counsel on the new changes.
Yeah, yeah, and there's pretty good stuff out on the ISB website through those changes and which legal sites for that, so.
I know the language, but we open up, we do money and salaries and benefits every year, so
Right.
what does that look like? I'm not sure, we've never been there before.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, and then we move stuff from the master contract to a handbook, so.
Yeah, so yeah, there'll be lots of issues there to work through.
So I just encourage that we just start the dialogue sooner the better.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
I mean, I think it can be a very transparent one, right?
Yeah, that'll be the goal.
So that it's not this used car sales, it's open, transparent
Yeah,
Mhm.
dialogue, and start, the sooner the better. It relieves all the tension and
yeah,
Yep.
no, I think that'll be good. So I'm gonna get something on our calendar.
Sure,
for
yeah.
January.
I will do that.
employee travel compensation
Do
policy.
you want to make a motion on that, or do you just want to appoint?
Jumping?
Everything okay?
The employee travel compensation, is anything we needed to,
This is the first reading. Just, you know,
Everything in yellow was not there.
Right.
It's new.
And I'll just tell you flat out that when it comes, and I don't know what you do for your businesses and things like that, but I know that when you go to someplace, if you go to a conference that's very far away, I mean, when you get $10, or I guess you can combine it, we put that in there, so not to exceed $30. I'm not saying that you just spend, but it's expensive to, you know, we found that out when we went to New Orleans.
So is this your recommendation, or how did?
This is what we currently have right now. But,
Okay.
well, I take that back. I can't say that, can I? Because of the fact that this part was not in there and we
Right.
needed to have this
For
out.
So
some
do you
reason-
think this number is low, and if so, would you propose something
This is
else?
the current practice.
Yeah,
And that's where it was,
does the state limit it, or are we limited by policy?
by
By
policy.
practice, right?
This is our current practice. For some reason, it was written on, this page two was missing. We're not sure when it was maybe dropped off of the policy, the board policy. Wasn't on the website, it said one of page two, but page two was never there. When we went back, everything in yellow was missing. So it was one of those things that we're like, okay, where is this $10 per meal that we practice, where was it? Well, we determined that it apparently was policy at some time, but not sure how it got dropped off.
so this
So-
seems low to me as well, Lindsay.
Right.
But
Yep.
do you have a recommendation? If not this, then what's your recommendation?
What I would like to do is I would like to go ahead, and I agree with you, I feel it's low. What I would like to do is I'd like to survey basically either our conference schools or 10 up, 10 down, and come with an average for the next meeting, if that's okay. That would be somewhat consistent, I would think.
I brought it up, I think, last time. The state has rates. You know, like, we're a government entity at Iowa State.
What are you-
and we
what's-
follow. So our state travel is 8, 12, 20 for a total of $40.
Okay.
And then in-state travel, I think, is 32. And then they also have a mileage rate for, 0 to 100 miles and then above 100 miles. I think it would be safe for you guys to just say,
And then the problem goes away.
here's what the state does, and we follow the same policy.
Can you, Omar, can you take and, one of the things that we put in there is that you can go ahead and, let's say that you don't do the breakfast and lunch, but you do a big supper. Can you guys, you have that flexibility?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't exceed.
It's still not realistic numbers, though. I mean,
It's
knowing,
not, and that's not enough, no.
right,
That's
those
the
aren't
state.
realistic numbers unless you want to eat, at McDonald's.
So this is first reading.
Right,
We all agree
right,
it's
yeah,
too low.
let's get-
Come with some.
Some recommendations?
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Okay, got the dropout prevention modified supplemental amount application.
Right, the requested amount for the modified supplemental amount is, I'm not gonna read them, but you can see the state pops in for the at-risk portion of it, about a little over 24.5. The local match is what we have to do, which you can see there is a little over 99,000 for a total of 421,918. Anyone that you talk to when you're talking about budgeting, they say make sure that you try to go ahead and use this, to the fullest extent. In other words, try not to leave money on the table. Now that, when I say that, that doesn't mean that we just go ahead and we go willy-nilly and, spend. But I think that, that we've been able to do some things with this. At one time, before Vic was into his role, he was funded under this, and now Jordan is. I think that we've been able to do some things with our guidance down at the elementary and the intermediate, because we've combined some of these. I think that it allows us to do, we have on there, it says interventionists in all the buildings. I think that if you ask these people back here, they try to use those people as much as possible, and I think that they're valued. I mean, you guys have any comments on the people that you have? Because I know that you're using them.
I just think for us, you know, the teachers are working so hard, and we've got the kids that you can move, we've moved. It's the kids that really struggle. And that's where, you know, those interventions come in for us, at least in the middle school. You know, we have somebody available during the day where kids can go if they're really struggling on work, that the teachers can send there, they can go and they work. We have an after-school program that's on Tuesdays and Thursdays that's funded through that. And so at least in my building, I mean, it's really helping those kids that are struggling, you know.
Anyone else want to add anything to from their building standpoint? You don't have to, but I mean, if you want to.
No, I'd just say from the at-risk, you know, specialist or student support, I mean, it's an extra body, an extra set of boots on the ground that can do lots of great work, especially with students that are struggling with anxiety, depression, or they have home issues. There's someone that can build those relationships, get to know those kids. Depending on who you hire, they could have some administrative backgrounds. They should have a counseling, or at least, you know, in that area. So you can do a lot of different things with those types of people. And they're people that, because they don't have the overload of classes, they can dig into situations and really get to know kids and know their families and find out what those barriers are and help to eliminate some of those barriers. And the nice thing about it, and Mr. Beecher may or may not mention this, but when the original funding was set up, it was very strict on the exact, you know, very few things you could do with it. And they've really opened it up now to where you can hire a lot more staff. They used to not let you hire counselors. Now you can hire counselors. They're even moving toward expanding that toward like dean of students that can do some discipline things. They're doing a lot of interesting things with it. The ingenuity component has helped us with some credit recovery for some kids that have lost credits or trying to regain some credits because they've fallen behind. And of course, any mentoring we do in any of the districts is beneficial.
Mike and Vic would both, I don't know necessarily that we go down to the intermediate or the elementary with our Edgenuity. I don't think so, but that works to our favor both ways. In this setting, we're using it for kids that are behind on some of their things. They need to get some credit recovery. They need to get back on track, if you want to say. The Edgenuity, we also have a great opportunity because of our foundation that they pop in some money too. So the Edgenuity can be used on the other end of it, where maybe the principals say, well, we don't necessarily have this out here, but we can look into Edgenuity and maybe there's a possibility that they can use it. So it's kind of twofold. We do try to keep those separate because of the fact that what we're using it for. The mentoring, the YSS mentoring is something. I think that we've made strides because I think it's because of our guidance people that we have. I think it's because of our at-risk people or dropout people that we have when we've been talking mental health. I think that we're making strides, and we had an opportunity the other day to be in the auditorium for 3 hours to listen to a person talk about this, and I'll tell you what, I think it was extremely interesting, and I think that the feedback from the staff was too. I'm getting off track. My point is that would request approval. What we've done is we filled out the application. The dollar amount, we're waiting to hear back from the state for their approval as far as the different things.
So we need to approve the 298,021.
Yes.
Entertain a motion for that. You have a question, Deb?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. So before, you were saying that this is not money that we want to leave on the table. Have we been able to, I mean, do we pretty much max this out
Yep,
every year?
We try
Okay.
to, yep.
Okay, thank you.
And the money is, there's a lot of factors, and Gail can probably explain this a little better than I can, but based on a lot of your demographics determine that number, correct? And we don't qualify for as much as other districts that have higher
Yeah.
Needs.
higher
It's
needs,
based on free and reduced.
free and reduced, and a lot of.
But ours
other
goes
issues.
up gradually every year because we have a growth of enrollment. So we see that. That's pretty much our growth that if we have additional dollars, which we do, it's because of our growth of enrollment.
Okay,
It's part of that formula.
but we pretty much have these spoken for, in
Right.
a sense, right? Like we're not, it's not.
It's not like we're just taking some money. And one of the things we try to do is we try to talk to each of the building principals to say, what is it that, are you in need for someone else that'll be an interventionist in your building? I think that, I think Mike was talking to me the other day, and we do some things that on maybe like Tuesday, Thursday, and we were saying, hey, is it possible that we could go Monday, Wednesday, Friday to to fill that gap out for some of those kids that we're working with. So yeah, these dollars are important. I think that they will go to fund some very valuable things.
Entertain a motion to approve the 298,021.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Further discussion?
Got it in there.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
I had to
opposed?
work on my reaction time.
Well, if you want to spend some money, you can spend some money
Oh,
here.
we'll let you first this one, Deb.
Here's the two, or here's the three, excuse me, that are out there. This is for an 84 passenger. These came in, and you can see the difference in the two. My recommendation would be that you go with Thomas Bus Sales at $99,710.
Typically, Bruce either puts his comments in, or we've got a little more detail. All I guess I would ask is this apples to apples is what I'm assuming.
That's
that there isn't any significant changes in these three different bids, because sometimes those have come in with
Yep.
different features, different.
You're exactly right. Do you have them there, Gail?
Oh.
And I know that one of the things that I think that what you're seeing is the two that the Thomas and the school bus sales are as close to apples. The Hoagland one, I believe, is a pusher. What that means is the engine's in the rear. And I said to Bruce, I said, can you live with any of these? He said, yes. And I said, are basically the two that are the closest apples to apples? And he said, yes.
I mean, I'm not going to take time to read all these, but assuming that you have or somebody has, I'll entertain a motion for Thomas Bus Sales.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Standing approved.
The engine on the other one.
Oh.
Thank you.
Pusher.
Next item is discuss the possible actions on the summer plans for 2018 projects. And so I think the biggest issue there that we've been talking about would be the secure entrance. Tyler, do you want to kind of kick
Well,
that
it's
off
my
a little bit?
understanding that we would like to do the secure entries this summer. And if we're doing that also to renovate the classrooms, the science classrooms here in this building. If we want to do that this summer, then we need to start having an architect working on that now in order for it to be put out for bid this spring, in order for us to have a chance of doing it in the summer. So I think the whole issue is, do we want to do the safe entries this summer, regardless of the bond outcome, which we'll come back to that, or not? Because if we do, then we need to approve the commissioning of HALA to do the plans for the two safe entries and the science room renovation. The question that came up, Lindsay, in your comments today, we've talked about that a couple times, but to me that in no way takes away from the bond issue, because if we're going to do those safe entries either way, well, then we need to get that started. The bond issue will be coming together and going forward in April, and if it successfully passes, those costs can be rolled into that bond. If it does not pass, we can still cover that out of PEPAL.
So we wouldn't really take them off of the bond, is what you're saying, right?
No.
Okay, that's a real key right there.
No,
Yeah.
that's what we've said a couple of times, is that's the list. But those three that are in the salmon color, we said, well, certainly the safe entries we want to do regardless. And we want to do as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So for those two safe entries, if those are going to happen this summer, we need to start that action now. You could make an argument that the fifth grade classrooms don't have to be done this summer, but I think the idea is, well, that probably could be packaged together, and it makes sense to me at least. So I would move to commission HALA to do the planning for those three with the expectation that that'll be put out for bid, I guess in February, March already, in order for that to be, a bid to be accepted such that that construction can happen next summer.
One thing I'd like to add to that, Tyler, is I thought that would be a good project to have done before we get into all the other ones the following summer. And from a timing standpoint, it's just a lot. If you can get those projects out of the way, it just kind of clears the deck, so to speak, that we'd have time to look at that this spring and before we get the rest of that list going. So that was the thing that I thought kind of made sense about, doing it this summer.
The point that he brought up was a good point from the standpoint of not to take it off the bond, because I think that we want people to, how should I say that, they're going to be in favor of moving forward on those type of things. So we don't want to lose that. The only thing that you will have is you'll have mobilization of your people, your construction people twice, which that's a part of it. Because what you'll do is you'll mobilize for your summer, and then you'll come back in and probably start with something in the fall as far as another mobilization. I don't know how much that would cost you or wouldn't cost you. I just didn't want to I wanted to make sure it wasn't taken off of the overall bond project.
I think it certainly sends a good message, though, that this is a priority either way. And, we're all in agreement that if we've got the couple funds and we're committed, then let's move forward, regardless.
And we're just talking about the ones up top that are in salmon, right?
Yep. Yeah, not those ones down below, but that's what I was going to ask. Because
not the fire alarm
salmon.
No.
Okay,
So,
just the top.
How do we decide on that color?
but those aren't even on the core list anymore. So we're talking about 3, 6, and 7.
And Tyler, when you say core list, is this
That's,
this the core?
Yep,
Okay.
there you go. That's what we approved last meeting.
Okay.
So that total of those 3 projects, the estimate on here is $315,000, which technically we could cover under Pebble, and if we have to, if the bond weren't to pass, we would. If, in fact, that's an urgency to get done, that's what I've heard, then that's why we would commission the architecture tonight and a bid in February or March. Bond passes, it's right there on the list, and it's part of the communication. So, again, I'd move to move forward. I'd move to commission HALA for those 3 projects.
It seems like we just want to make sure, as I know everybody has said, our communication is going to be critical here and being clear and consistent. That this is not us taking, it wouldn't be seen by anybody as taking for granted that the bond would pass, right? Well, here we go, we'll just start. Because it's our, I think we want to be careful that we're clear about that. I don't think we are, but I don't think anybody up here is for sure, or anywhere in this room, but I just want to make sure that it's not misinterpreted by some.
Well,
we're just going ahead.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
We have the financial wherewithal to do it. We
Yeah.
think it's important, and we would rather use bonding for it if we can. That allows us to have more financial cushion for roofs and all the other
Buses
things
and
that go with that.
technology.
But
Yeah.
I think it's prudent, and I do believe that getting this project out of the way is a good thing, whether the bond issue passes or not.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good move that if anyone were to hear the facts of it, could understand it pretty quickly.
Any comments? I know administratively we talked about this a couple different times. Anything that you want to add in? Okay.
Is it something of urgency, Stacy?
I think the community definitely views that as a.
If we don't do this tonight, then it doesn't happen this summer, and
Right.
assuming you don't want disruption during a school year, then it's summer of 2019.
I think when we had the conversation about, okay, we know we have a little couple dollars to play with around, I think we said, well, you gotta be careful, because you wanna know that whatever you did with those couple dollars was something that, at the end of the day, was the thing you most wanted to have happen. Because we kinda talked about, do we do baseball repairs, or what do we do? So I think in terms of messaging, it does send a good message that that's the project we're most,
cool.
that we're finding is important.
And we don't want to wait till summer of 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do it regardless. Cool.
I entertain a motion.
I have a Tyler,
I've done
not a
it.
motion, Tyler.
And I have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstains, approved. Thank you. Okay, so this one kind of goes hand in hand with it. So discuss a construction manager to assist in the summer project and possible bond projects if approved. So Tyler, if you would, will you kind of lay out what the timing, kind of go into Omar's question in public forum? I think it would be good for all of us to hear kind of what we anticipate is the timeline for things that we have to accomplish and what that looks like.
Yeah, so Omar's question was about communication primarily, at least initially. And so as we've just discussed, we want to make sure we've got the messaging points correct. The communication committee's working on them. They tend to be very project oriented. We had a meeting with, so now there are 3 bond referendum co-leaders, Ryan Galing, Carol Berge, and Mike Haverdink. So they will help lead the vote yes, or whatever it's called, probably be vote yes group. They can be seen by the community as being obviously positive for the bond referendum. With the exception of you two, everybody else in this room cannot be seen as soliciting for the bond. We can provide information. So we've got a lot of information, but we still need to distill it down to good communication and good messaging points. The communication committee's got a lot of facts. We want to distill that down to some elevator speeches so that when in early January, so right after the first of the year, that bond committee will need to go out and get approximately 300 signatures on a petition that will come to us on January 15th. We figured that once they go out to start getting petitions, once we get people to start signing, they're going to say, so what's this about? So we better have our messaging pretty tight. And that's the elevator speeches that we want to have, including what we just approved. January 15th, the petition will come to the board, and sometime the next week, Lindsay and John will take that to the county and say, hey, we've got signatures, we want to have a bond referendum on April 3rd. So between that 15th of January and April 3rd is when we want to have a lot of communication. That's when the communication committee can certainly assist, but they can't be seen as the vote yes. The vote yes folks will help drive that, maybe put a vote yes sticker on it, gets mailers, forums, social media, all of that stuff going. So that's kind of the communication window, is really the middle of January till essentially spring break, because I mean that's the focus point with the election, with the vote on April 3rd. What's that?
I thought it was the 26th for some reason, but it's April 3rd.
Yeah, it's right away in April. So it's a sprint here, which is good. I mean, what Hala's experience, our experience previously is we don't want to start too soon. People will just get kind of numb to it, but you don't want to start too late, right? So that 2 to 3 months seems like a good window, which, well, that's what we have coming right after Christmas holidays. And that'll be our focus, which again, Ryan, Carol, and Mike will help drive with the communication committee and whoever else. As far as functional, we just commissioned some architectural work for some stuff that would hopefully happen already next summer. The rest likely wouldn't happen for better part of a year, but that'll be Hala taking all of that list, bundling it up into different projects, and then this topic of construction manager is, do we want as a district to do as, for example, Ames has done, and hire a construction manager that helps manage that and that represents the district in all of our activities, rather than just being beholden to whoever we put it out to bid, and that they will manage it, and then it gets back to really Lindsay and maybe Steve Volstead, maybe Gail being the representatives from the district. So there'll be a lot that goes on, which will be different than when we built the middle school, and certainly than when we built the high school, where it was really one big project. So in initial conversations here and with Hala, some conversations with some of the Ames school board members on how that's gone, we think it would be a good idea to have a construction manager to represent us as we go through all of those different projects once the bond is approved. And it won't be 20 6 different projects, it'll probably be 3 to 5 bundled sets that would be, they're going to be focused on the middle school, they're going to be focused on the high school. But we would have a construction manager that represents the school in all those activities, as opposed to relying on whoever gets the bid, a general contractor and their site person, which, as we found out when we did the high school, Lindsay, there were several issues that came down to, well, at the end of the day, they represent the general contractor, not the district. Just one example would be the pouring of the concrete parking lots. Yeah. And as a board member, I didn't really feel like I should have to go out there, but I went out there for a meeting to just say, yes, these are cracks in the concrete, and no, that's not acceptable. Well, I don't think the board should have to serve in that role. So that's why my long story is, I think we should strongly consider a construction manager, especially given that we've got a myriad of different projects that we'll want to have good oversight of. So that process could be construction manager on place within the next month or two to help HALA start staging these things. It could be that we wait until the bond successfully passes, but that will just delay that we get some of the things in addition to the 3 that we commissioned today to get off the ground.
And the thought process is there's going to be definite advantages when you have one person overseeing all of the projects and having a sense of, well, really what makes the most sense of the order to do those things in. So,
how are they paid? By project? A percentage of the project?
We just bid it.
It typically, yes, it's a percentage. And you say, well, where does that come from? Well, your 2 options. A general contractor would be that the school bids it out, and Gail has one contract with like Harold Pike, right? But then Harold Pike does all the subbing.
Right.
They do supposedly the construction management, but they're still representing themselves. So when you go the construction management route, it's not a general contractor. Our construction manager, together with Gail, puts out the sub bids for the different projects, and that construction manager basically serves as the oversight.
So it's the school putting out the contract rather than.
So would the assumption then be that you would incur a savings from the general contractor because they're not providing those services?
Yeah, we basically wouldn't be putting out to a general contractor.
So everything would be subbed. So we're going to hold 24 different contracts instead of 1.
Well, instead of 4 or 5, they're going to be bundled into,
okay,
at the very least. So that's kind of your, that's why at the end of the day, what Ames' experience was, well, there wasn't an additional cost because there was actually less services provided by the contractors in the construction manager approach, because it's put out by project, by sub, as opposed to a general contractor.
And if you had one project, it's a little less moving parts that, okay.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
The more projects you have going at one time, the more you need someone to oversee the whole process.
And the other thing that we need to think of is what, as we've already talked about in coming up with this list, is what's the timing. And a construction manager can help us with that as well. And could coordinate across projects where a general contractor would be like, no, you've got the high school, I've got the middle school. There's no savings of we've got a plumber that's over here now. Nope, this is my plumber, that's your plumber.
So if you asked a question, you said now or after after we know the results of the bond. So what, and if it's based off of a percentage, then percentage of what for the bond? I mean, what are they paid? Do we start hire them next month? What are we paying them?
Well, we start
those projects that we just agreed to.
For
right?
just the first three, or
No.
the first 3 things that we said.
So we've got 13.885 million up there as
Yeah.
a list, right?
Right. That's
So if we say, all right, we are hiring a construction manager, that they're going to oversee all that. When all that's done, whatever the rate is, 2.5%, whatever, they're going to have 2.5% of that, right? What do they do initially? Well, they will be employed to help organize getting that ready. Now, what do those first few months look like? I don't know. We'd have to sit down and ask. But in my mind, with that list and with the expectations that we're not going to sit around and wait 2 or 3 years to do that, there's no time like the present to get that planning started. So you could even invest now, sit down with one. In the process, it's a service, so it doesn't technically need to put out for bid, but I would recommend that we bring in 2 or 3 or more that we would interview.
Okay.
And then we can select from there.
Or decide not to, right? We're not committing, I mean, we're committing to, hey, we think this is a good idea. Let's bring them in and ask more questions, find out.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure,
I'm not
but-
saying I'm opposed, I just,
Yeah.
Need to know.
You-
we're
now
committed.
versus later, or all
Yeah.
those things, there's still questions in my mind.
Right. So I think the topic for tonight is to get that thought process started for all of us, be thinking about timing, and if we think, yeah, that's a direction we certainly want to look into, then it's no time like the present to start getting a short list of potential construction managers to come in and talk to the
And
board.
looking at it, yeah,
Yeah.
investigating.
Lindsay, your experience?
I haven't had experience with the construction management. I did talk to Tim Taylor because they have done quite a few different projects over at Ames, and he said that that's the only way that he would go. I don't know, and when I should have, I don't know why I didn't ask, but Roland Story works with Hala, and they had just last year kind of a similar thing that we're doing with a number of different projects. But I don't think I asked Matt what they were doing, but I know that Tim said that he felt that that was easy, not easy, that was the best way to look at it because of the fact that you have someone in there that is representing the school. I've never had the opportunity, so I can't say anything, you know, either way about them. But you know, I guess if you will, it doesn't hurt to look. You know.
And Gail, have you had experience?
The experience I've had, it was not a very reputable company. They're not. It was out in Omaha was. Gosh, what was the name? And they people hated them. So, but they seemed to keep things going, and they did their job, and it kept, you know, making sure the change orders, everybody was on track.
So in your experience, the idea is good, but
The idea is
perhaps
good.
your experience
Yeah,
wasn't.
just that,
Okay.
yeah. And I don't think they're in business anymore. They changed their name, so.
Well, and that'd be the other issue.
Of course
You
you
wanna
would.
make sure they had a good working relationship
Sure.
with whoever the architect
Yeah.
is.
And the only reason I have questions is we toyed with it when we were
Yeah.
in the early stages, I think, of the high school, right?
Yeah.
And I don't remember why we didn't go
What
that
I was told is
way.
we don't do it that way here, and I think it's time to
Well,
sort of review that, especially with a list like that, if it was high school.
Right, I agree.
And that was kind of the decision that was made, so.
Okay. Well, I'm in favor of considering it, I suppose.
Talking to, yeah, getting some people in.
Yep.
So go ahead and solicit some people to present to us. Okay. And I think we kind of covered 607. Is there any additional questions people have on the rolls with 607? I think Tyler pretty well covered all of that. But does anybody have any questions on agenda item 607?
What is that? I'm sorry.
It's kind of the roles that we'll be playing. I think that discussion kind of all went together. But
I think Tyler did a nice job of talking about those. The thing that this coming Wednesday night, we're going to be meeting as a communications group along with the I don't know what you call them. What do you call them? Their vote? Yes, key people. And that we will be trying to get something out. One of the things that we talked about, we had a meeting last week just to try to know who these people were and things like that. from our standpoint as far as the staff, and I think that we're all in the same thought process. It's important that we get information out to our staff as soon as we can. But in the same breath, I'll say it's very, very important that whatever we're getting out the same information to all the different groups. So when we were talking the other night, we just said, you know, the staff is really wanting to know, you know, we know that we've heard some things that are out there, and we don't want them to be caught off guard from the standpoint of not knowing what's happening. But again, I go back to the fact that we want to make sure that if we're singing from the same music. So the bullet points that we used for our staff, we can use for the Lions Club or for the, you know, whatever group. So it's pretty important though that we get things, and I don't know, maybe I'm just, you know, making more of it. I just want to get those things going so we can get that information out to our staff, because I don't want staff to get out there and have people say, well, I heard you guys were doing this and this and this. Yeah, we know about it because we've already been, you know, they've talked to us about it, and they want our input on it too, that type of thing. So, but I think he did a nice job of how that's represented. And the 13th, which is what, 2 days away, we'll get a chance to bring some of those people together, and there's a lot of people that are really enthused about trying to do different things. So,
do any of the administrators have any questions on that process? Is that all kind of how you guys had seen it going? We can get to cover a little more.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I asked is I kind of was worried about, you know, when do we need to start?
Right.
And this was very helpful.
Good.
I think, as you guys said, the consistent message is going to be key.
Yeah, the idea is, you know, obviously we're coming into Christmas break, but we want to get this bond committee, and they're meeting with the communication committee on Wednesday. Want to get them working together, and then it'd be nice to then, it'd probably be by email, we all get kind of an elevator speech. Because what we're kind of ready for is why we're doing all those projects. What we're not ready for is what's the crisp answer to what's this do to taxes? What's the crisp answer to where's our growth at? What's the crisp answer to are we really ready, or if we do this, are we still good for 2025 and 2030 and 2035, right? So we've got that information. We just need to put it into some really tight messages, and not that we have to be robots when we respond, but if somebody answers this way to the same question that somebody answers that way, then it starts unraveling.
Yeah, that's the consistent message.
Is it?
Why invest in the art? Why invest in this course? Well, I mean,
yeah,
these things gotta be consistent among everybody.
Right. And what we can get caught up in is, well, we're all right in the center of it, and it makes a lot of sense to us. The good news is, well, Carol Berge came up to me the other night after our initial meeting. She goes, I got one really, really stupid question. I said, hey, nothing's stupid here, right? She goes, who wouldn't want this? And I said, well, that's a great attitude to have. But you know, you need to be ready for that, right? Because we could sit here and take it for granted when we shouldn't. So that's the idea. Is it being too conservative? I don't think so. I think once we get started in January, we'll have some nice messaging, and there'll be a lot of communication on it. We'll have some forums, and I think it'll be good.
Thanks, Todd. Review the financial reports, our S&P rating. Talk a little bit about that, Lindsay.
So Gail has it up here. I think she'll go ahead with it.
That's really good.
So everyone should have been notified on the outcome of the AA- stable instead of negative. So I wanted to basically cover with you guys on our presentation to them and what we discussed with S&P on what their expectations are going forward to take this rating forward. So we had a meeting with them over the phone, and basically we sent them all financial information. Travis had a very key position, Travis with Piper Jaffray. Helped us on what they were looking for, what they would be what they would see acceptable. And so the message here with showing you, I'll show you the financial statements that we sent them. So these, if you want to think about this, the outcome was a AA negative stable, but in order to keep that, this is kind of expectations because this is what we told them. So these are kind of like the rules to the game now. Not promises, because there's so many moving parts. But I wanted to, the key indicators here, what are the key facts? The key, what they want to see, basically, is the message that we're sending them is by 2020, we have told them we are going to be at a 12% solvency. Now, in order to get there, these are the things we need to live by or try to live by. And so basically, for next year, this year we're already in, so it's kind of hard to change things because we're already there. So at 19, our assumptions are 0 from the state. And then we went through our enrollments and everything and the tax rate. And so in that, we basically are telling them that we are going to live within a 1.5% addition to our current expenses. So our expenses will increase by 1.50, and we are going to add $300,000 into staffing. Now, with that in mind, if our
That's an and, so the 1.5 plus the 300,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is at a 0%. So if the 0% changes, these things down here can change. But that, in order to get to 12% by 2020, this is what we need to do. Now, if we don't add $300,000 in additional staffing by next year 19, that is very doable. But that tells you how tight it is when you add staffing to do this. If you delay it a year, it's remarkable how that changes things. But, Tyler, you're...
Yeah, so 2020 solvency, if I'm looking at the right row, you got 13.9.
Yeah.
So there's a little cushion in there, you're saying?
Yep.
What's the assumption behind the levy, the tax rate? Because last year, 18.9 to 18.90, and then it's going down. Is that because of the cash reserve, or what's taking that down?
Basically enrollment, it's our 405 is cross for debt service.
So that's assuming
Yes.
405 stays.
Yeah. So basically our valuation's going up,
Yeah,
our enrollment's going up,
yeah.
but our debt service is 405 across the board for the next.
Okay, so that's taking
Yes.
tax valuation at what assumption? Do you know what valuation increase?
We are doing a property
Percentage
value
change
at
of
4,
Yeah.
Oh,
It
it's
was
right there,
7,
4%.
and then
Yeah.
4 across the board.
And the 7 we think we know, according to Travis.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We do not know
So
about
that's
those.
conservative even there.
So yeah, and enrollment's at 2.5.
Yeah.
So the thing that I just wanted to, this is a great rating,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some rules that, there are expectations, because going forward, in order to achieve this, we got that rating. And so bringing it to the board saying, okay, you know, this is what we worked with, this is how we're going to get there, this is our plan. So these are kind of what our rules are now, basically. Try our best. There's so many moving parts. If something changes, and we can tweak some other things, but
Supplemental aid goes up, enrollment goes up, because those are both,
Yeah.
well, I don't know if they're conservative or not, but they seem to be. Then solvency's even that, then you have an opportunity
Yeah.
to spend more
yeah.
for salaries.
And what concerns me is that 1.5 is not very much.
Right, right. But you've got a little cushion in there, and you've got some conservative estimates up
Yeah.
above.
Yep.
It's about all we
So,
can do.
and I tell you, we get through these next 3 years, it's going to be okay. It'll be fine.
Is there a cash levy option, or did we kind of spend that 2 years ago?
The cash levy
Yeah.
is, in this scenario, we are going to assume that our special ed deficit is going to be 500,000 across the board.
Yeah.
We are maximizing a cash reserve, we're maximizing at risk and all those different funding opportunities. And then we are also, our point here is when you get to 22 and 23, our cash reserve, we can, you know, to levy our levy,
Mm-hmm.
you work with that cash reserve of, you know, increasing it from 100,000 to 200. That's not already earmarked for all those other, you know, special ed deficit,
Okay.
the you know, drop out, you know, things like that. So you use that to levy, to balance in your,
Yeah, because
You
that
gotta have
could
the
be,
spending authority is the key though, right?
spending authority.
yeah, but that could also be a lever to be pulled if supplemental aid isn't 2% out there at the 2022
Yeah.
and 20.
Yeah,
So that's,
it's another option.
there's
yeah.
still some cushion there.
Yeah.
Because I would hope that we could get the expenditures a little bit higher when 80% of that is salaries.
Mhm. Yeah.
I was a little nervous about what the tax bill might do for general obligation bonds. But so far, it's really not changing the bank qualified rate very much because it's not a big piece of the municipal market. So I was a little nervous about that, but so
So
far,
rates would go up.
yeah.
That's what we're hearing.
But so far, so I had some general obligation bonds that were emailed to me today that are just going out for bid, and they're still trading at about 90% of U.S. Treasury rates, and that may be up 5% over what they were prior to Trump being elected. So, you know, so really it hasn't been a big effect yet, but I'll keep an eye out on that.
The new
and
tax,
see. Yeah.
there's some implications in that.
Yeah.
That doesn't make things very appealing for some things that are tied to the school.
Yeah, and it's mainly the bank qualified part. So they're general market municipals that still apply to people that are in the 39% tax bracket. So those are wanted, but the bank qualifieds are everything that's 10 million and below. And so they were always a little more wanted because banks could buy those. And so they had a little lower rate than the general markets, but that's probably gonna erase, but it hasn't moved much yet. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that we can make it to April.
Well, yes, on April 3rd, certify the next day or two and sell the bonds, right?
Exactly. We want to be ready to go.
So the whole purpose here is just wanted to let you guys convey the message,
Yeah.
what we told them, their
Yeah.
expectations, not promises.
Yeah.
So
I think your new spreadsheet really helped out.
Oh, I
already.
like this
You
spreadsheet.
know? That's pretty
It's
good
really-
information.
yeah.
That's good information.
And then, you know, and the other piece of this, the financial piece, in the report that I submitted to you guys, there's not a lot going on. So you know, unless you guys have some questions, and in the summary, things are looking good. John, I wanted to address your question on line 33.
I saw that in there.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, so we are overall, you know, on the monthly, let me pull it up. I said I wasn't going to talk about it here, I'm talking about it. But overall, like our actuals, our monthly, on the monthly, we have a loss of our revenues of, not loss, I should say, but a lower, only $6,000. But when you look at the whole budget, $6,000 is minimal. But overall, we have a gain in the monthly actuals, and the variance of the year-to-date and the budget were above our budget. So, you know, there was a lot of green, very few red areas that are concerned, and there were some areas of red. But, you know, last month I know there was one that I brought some detail to, but I didn't see that there was anything that I really needed to, the red areas, you know, when you were talking, I saw like a 3,500 and 1,400. To me, that's not big dollars, so I didn't dig into it to find out more detail. And so the variance is, you know, we're above budget, and our annual revenues and our forecasting gain were above. So at this point in time, we're not even halfway to our, you know, December will be halfway. So, and as we get closer, it will, we'll need to pay more attention on where are we ending, so, and then.
Quick question for you on Pebble.
Sure.
We just approved a bus tonight,
Mhm.
and yet there's already $105,000 spent on the transportation line item to a $125,000 budget. Is this bus we just approved going to be in the next school year?
Yes, it will not be delivered until, I just have to think about what year is
July or
this?
something, yeah.
The other one was
We're just doing
delivered
it 6
July,
months
so we
ahead.
spent it July 1st. This one will not be delivered or expensed until July. Yep.
God, boy, my daughter Blair doesn't budge me to spend it now. Budget.
Do we need
Yeah.
to accept that?
Uh-oh, that
as
was
a review
recorded.
board, or is that-
I don't think so, it's just information, and then the financials you could approve and the,
Okay.
does anybody else have any questions or concerns?
Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, or if there's anything you'd like to pull off of there, we can do that.
Let's pull up the,
Hold on.
here's our personnel. There's, actually on the bills, I really don't have any questions or concerns for any of the bills that were on here. Basic, minimal, for November's kind of a quiet month. Our big month will be January and February, because we will be paying tuitions. We'll be receiving and paying tuitions in January and February, again in May and June. So those are our 2 big months. Okay. Anybody have any questions about the bills? No. Okay.
Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Jill.
Meeting's approved.
Just about last time.
Anything on the calendar?
Anything to, do you have anything on the fundraising part of that?
No, I keep putting the message out to let me know so I can put it on the calendar, and I don't think we have a lot going on right now.
Good.
Good. So then,
Yeah.
the January meeting, we're gonna push back a week
Oh, yeah,
January
thanks,
15th.
yeah, 15th, right. Yep.
instead of the 8th, so maybe, well, as long as Omar and Du hung out, then that's probably,
We'll make sure.
you
that it
guys will
goes
just
out.
come on board whenever you come on board, so.
We'll make sure that it goes out.
We've already updated the calendar,
Okay.
in the board section of the calendar, the dates of the board meeting, you already updated that.
Okay.
Nothing else for January.
Okay, that's all it. And so,
You want to recess
Martin Luther King
and
Day.
then kind
Yeah,
of,
let's-
and then, you
we'll have
want to
a-
recess that and then.
Yeah, we'll go into recess and then we'll come back for closed session.
That's what Harrison's all about. Also, you know, when he was a little tight, he broke his collarbone. The comment was, you can't do PE or recess for 4 weeks. And he was like second grade
No,
or
we
something.
just
He goes,
recess.
just
So it
start
has to
trying.
be, no, it has to be shut down.
No, I don't. Why would I go to school? I can't go to Christmas.
Yeah, just, yeah.
So tonight I get home and travel.